My name's Jans. Hey, I'm a reformed geek, so I've had a couple of nice liquidity events in the 80s and 90s after I worked in software as a young lad and fell in love with money. So I've gone to the dark side. I am one of the finance guys now. The good news is, you know, my heart and soul in the beginning was all as a software programmer, computer science from Michigan. Spent my childhood years building heat kits, so I respect and understand technology, but really business is all about money. And as a CEO of a company, there's no shortage of requests and opportunities to spend money wisely in the company. Technology is one of the many places I get asked to spend money. And I have to weigh that against marketing opportunities, sales, doing acquisitions, restructuring debt, buying new data centers. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to speak not to the technology side. I'm going to try to speak to the finance side and the cost of this, because one of the things that's been frustrating for me is I give the IT side, which I'm part of, about a C- in communicating things like what Brent just tried to answer: what does managed mean? No offense, but it took you about 100 words. And the finance guy's not going to sit and listen to 100 words about why it costs $4,000 a month to manage a $2,000 server. So I'm going to try to show some slides and a way to maybe communicate that. Here goes. A little background, a little overview of what I'm going to do here. Get a little background in the industry after I introduce our company. I'm going to talk about total cost of ownership, and then what we call CAPEX-Free IT. And in the end, here's my thesis, that CAPEX-Free fixed cost IT focuses your capital, which increases your growth, enabling you to survive. And that's the title of this session, right? Can managed services help your business survive? And I think it can. I'm going to show you that. So just a little bit about us. We are an infrastructure-based managed provider, so we don't manage anything that's not in our data center. Nothing. We get asked to all the time. We will. It allows us to provide reliability, scalability, and security for a price point that's completely unavailable otherwise. We have a couple data centers, 2 in Ann Arbor, one up in Genesee County, all kinds of power, multiple gigabit this, megawatt that. It's not that important. If you go to our website, you can read it all. So, managed service provider industry. The industry's done an absolutely horrible job, and I'm in it. Another C- I give up here. At answering the question, what is managed IT? What does a managed service provider do? You can go to 20 different websites, us and 20 of our competitors, some of you are here, Alcon's one of them, and you can't figure it out. It's terrible. We do a really lousy job. This is sort of how some of it's come about. One of the best things I've seen is around this whole cloud computing attempt here is by Gartner came out with this sort of description or way to describe infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And this is all pretty clear to IT people what software as a service is, or as a service anything is. But what this kind of showed is that you know, you can see some of the market sizes and the growth rates. They're pretty stunning growth rates. Platform as a service is a 70% compound annual growth rate. That industry is on fire. Our industry's infrastructure as a service is on 30% compound annual growth rate. That's pretty fast. It's one of the only industries that's growing anywhere near these rates anywhere on Wall Street. It's a great industry to be in. One of the things, so this whole cloud computing thing is trying to help answer this managed service provider problem. And so I'm going to back up for a minute and say, where does this cloud computing thing come from? I've been doing this long enough that I remember mainframes. My first class at University of Michigan, I used punch cards and Elgol. Anybody here ever used punch cards? How many people use punch cards? You used a punch card, Brent? Mainframe had shared hardware, shared operating system, private software, was fully metered. It's kind of cool to go back, and I went back and looked at my sophomore year programming. They used to give us like $500 of money on the mainframe. Every time you put in a page, it was 6 cents. Every time you used a CPU cycle, it was 1/1000th of a cent. Every time you used 2K of RAM, it was a penny. And then you got a bill. It broke it all down. It's like cloud computing today. Then came the mini computer, PCs, LANs, you needed private hardware, private operating system, private software, and you spent your own capital. And everybody was like, I gotta have the hardware myself. I want it near me, want it in me, want my own data center. Data centers were built all over the place. Then the PC came about. Bill Gates said, one on every desk. Actually, he was wrong. It's one for every lap. Private hardware, commercial operating system. That was really interesting. And commercial software. This was like the iTunes back then. Wow, you mean you would actually license the software and it's yours? That was really rare. Then came this hosted SaaS world, software as a service, where you outsource the hardware. No OS, or OS, if there was one, you didn't know what it was. You outsource the software and you fix costs. Salesforce.com. Anybody heard of Salesforce.com? Really, really good example of that. Moving on to the cloud, where it's a shared app and you pay by the SIP. Anybody familiar with Amazon? Is it their C3 or EC3 or something like that? Or Google Web Services. These are cloud computing environments where, guess what? You write a program, you put it in their cloud, and they bill you per page printed, per megabyte of memory used, per CPU cycle, exactly like they did back in the mainframe days. Kind of weird. So what drives all this? Why did we go through all these changes? And why do you do this? Where does the capital come from to drive all this innovation? Why did we go through this big circle? Well, total cost of ownership is what drives all innovation in technology. Everywhere, go to Silicon Valley, one of the first things they'll do is say, how does this make everything cheaper and better? That's what drives it. It's about total cost of ownership. You know why? Because the IT guys spend the money, but they don't have it. They have to ask for it. We use this thing in our company called the Internet Delivery Stack that kind of breaks up all the layers of all the stuff that has to be done for managed services. This is trying to answer, why does it cost so much? Where does this TCO come from? We use this stack, and the top three layers are sort of you, in our mind. Your user uses an application, which hits a database. That's where really the intellectual property is. And then there's infrastructure below that. You have an operating system sits on top of a piece of hardware. You network that hardware together, stick it on the internet, power it, stick it in a secure, safe facility, or on your laptop. It's a laptop. This stack works on every paradigm, by the way. And this is sort of the way you define any infrastructure, or any system. And what's interesting about this is as you go up the system, you get to more application-specific, kind of higher value-add intellectual property resources, programmers. It's interesting that at the top of the stack, your application code in your database. If you're a SaaS company or you're a company at all, you're lucky if there's 10 people in the world that know your application. Down here, electricity, facility, you can get an electrician within, there's 20 of them within 2 miles of your office. So as you go up the stack, it's a lot higher value add, it's a lot more intellectual property. That's where our customers need to focus. Let us focus on the bottom half, the bottom parts of the stack, where it's really lower value add, very capital intensive, cheaper to outsource, and scalability, reliability, and security are really critical now to the top stack. Because here's what happens. If anything goes bad, anywhere in the infrastructure stack, your user feels it. And they don't really care. You're not going to go and explain to them, oh, well, you know a transformer blew. Transformer blew? I was just trying to post an entry in my Salesforce system. What does that have to do with a transformer?